Hello everyone, today we'll be unboxing another figurine for the week. Here we have is a collaboration figurine from the manufacturer Amakuni and the distributor AmiAmi. Is a 1/7 scale PVC figure of the character Lewisia AquaBlue or Aqua Vampire Negligee version from the video game series BomberGirl Rainbow or Rainbow BomberGirl. As always, before we take the figurine out of its packaging, just in case you didn't know, BomberGirl is a spin-off of the game Bomberman, also known as Bakudan Otoko, which is a video game franchise originally developed by Hudson Soft in 1983 for the NEC PC and the Sharp MZ, which later in 1987, Bomberman was released for the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Famicom, which the series has gotten multiple sequels and spin-off games, where this game here, BomberGirl Rainbow or Rainbow BomberGirl, comes in. BomberGirl is an online battle arena multiplayer, first released on arcades in Japan in 2018, then later released in 2021 for Microsoft's Windows, both developed by Konami, which the game soon after became a free-to-play in 2022. So here is the character Lewisia AquaBlue, or Aqua for short, the vampire aristocrat, making her debut in the game in March of 2018. So here's the figure titled the Vampire Negligee version. This is the box rotating in 360. So without holding you guys back, let's just take Aqua out of her packaging and see how the figurine looks. So here we have is Aqua straight out of her packaging, and as you can see here, there's not really much protection that the figurine does have, but it does look like it's snug fit in its packaging, so there's not really much movement in it. But you can see it's actually all connected, so let's just take this out and see how the figurine looks. So there is no assembly instructions guide because it's all together, and if you were curious, there is a small text here on the box itself, which is basically just saying it's just the main figurine. So here we have is the figurine itself, and as you can see, just like I stated earlier, the figurine is connected already onto the base, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to show you, different angles of the figurine itself. But we're going to be working with what we already have here. So, just like every other figurine, at the bottom of the figurine, or should I say on the bottom of the base, we do get its information for the figurine. The bottom here does say Konami Amusement, Konami Digital Entertainment, and in 2023. So here's the bottom of the base, which doesn't really have much to show you, but you could see is a little bit of, you could kind of see little sections where they did insert some of the stuff where we're not able to see, and a little bit of detail where they do have like little indents on the base. So there's not really much I can say about the bottom, but it has like a pretty decent light blue on it. So here is the top section of the base, which I could say it's a little bit confusing because I know they try to give it more of a like a aesthetic gothic type look of the base with the points, because she is a vampire aristocrat, so I think they try to give it like a gothic type feel. Again, a little bit, I feel more like it kind of like, since it is like a Bomberman type game, because of these spikes you see in the front, you could say it's kind of like an explosion on the floor, so the spikes are like kind of like blue flame. But that's just me. I think that, again, I think this is because of like the gothic feel of the character, because she's a vampire. I think the base tries to replicate like kind of like the, like in the, where like like how Dracula has the spikes on the mountains. It's almost like similar to that. You do see in the top here, we do see a little bit of roof pattern, and the paintwork is somewhat decent with a little bit of a darker shaded blue on some of the bottom sections of the base itself, which gives it kind of like a contrast from light blue to dark blue, which is a pretty, you know, nice touch. But again, the base is a little bit confusing because of the blue kind of mixes with the cape, but I don't really think this is the whole cape. From this section, you do see her foot is standing onto this little section there, and I did notice, looking at her feet here, her toes, the paint on her toes is a bit faded. I don't know if my camera is like picking it up much, but you can see some of her toes, the blue paint on each of her nails are a little bit faded. I don't know if that's maybe because of it being the box for a while, or they just forgot to paint that on the figurine. So that's a disclaimer. I don't think yours is gonna come like this if you buy yours. This is just how mine came. You can see the toes are quite detailed. You do get her tail here, where it's wrapped around her foot. It's a little bit flexible, but do be careful with it because it feels a little bit delicate that you could snap it if you pull on it too much. And the foot here is actually also detailed when it comes to her knee area, and the tail you can see goes all the way to her back section. Again, it's a little bit hard to show you it, but it is attached to her back. It's not one of the little vampire helpers that she has around her. But speaking of them, you could see here she does have a set of 5 of them, 2 at the bottom, 2 on the top by her shoulder or by her arms, and 1 in the front by her foot, which is kind of cute. We do get is a little bit of an expression on each one. So we actually have one here in the front, so I'm not certain if he's crying or if he's happy that he's getting stomped on, but you do get is like a view where she's like mid floating and this little guy's attached to his her foot, which is kind of funny and cute. And you do see is like the paint job is actually pretty nice. You do see he has an open mouth, and you can see his little eyes are teared up, which again, I'm not certain if he's happy or he's sad, or he's finding pleasure in this. So here's a close-up shot of her foot here on the top section of the bat, or one of her helpers. And you do notice that the paint here on her toes is a lot better than from her other foot. And you can kind of see her pinky toe here is actually a little bit fused to one of her other toes there. But again, the sculpt here actually looks pretty nice. You do see a little bit of detail, and she doesn't have leggings. This is just her skin because she's really pale. And the only clothes you have is the ones you see from this top portion here, where you do see is her cloth around her thigh. You see her underwear here, which is a little, you could see is a little bit pressed up against her, so you can see there's a little bit of her skin a little bit popping towards her underwear. And you do see her towards the bottom here, you do see is also detail. Okay, so here's a little bit of a zoom in. You can see is a little bit of a fold there by her thigh, by her backside, which is quite detailed. And you can also see the little guys at the bottom here, which also have an expression with their eyes closed, or pupil closed, and her eyes open, almost like Yoshi, if you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's actually quite detailed. You do see here in this angle here by her thigh area there, where you do see a little bit of the strap of her underwear is tied up against her, and there's a little bow tie there. And from this section you could see her tail attached to her body. And I also noticed from this back section, from these little openings, you could get a better view of the bottom section of her, where you do see is the bottom of her legs there and her behind. And you do see is her tail there, where you could see it is attached to her. And you do see is a little bit of her bra on the top section there. So I would apologize, I couldn't get the lighting there, but you do get to see it from this angle, from the bottom section of the base, from this little hole here. You do see is a little bit of an angle of her entire body, or her entire body sculpt. It's a pretty nice sculpt, but I feel like it could have been detached, so we'll be able to see it a little bit more. But it's still a pretty decent figurine. Like I say, we have is this cloth around her thigh. it looks like it's a little bit pressed up against her, which is a pretty nice touch. I think they did a nice job on her skin tone. It's a little bit of a palish color, and if you notice here, I think the white material is translucent. You do see, like from this angle where the light's hitting, you do see is her underwear. But when I tilt it a little bit on the opposite section, it goes away. So I'm assuming the material, the white material that they use for her clothing is translucent over, so they painted over a silver coloring on top of that translucent material. Here's a close-up shot by her stomach area where you do see is a little bit of a heart, bat-shaped heart, which I have an idea of what that's supposed to be, but I'm just gonna not really say it. But there's a little print there of a little heart. Here's her nails, which you do see she also has a colored blue, just like her toes. You see her, she also has like translucent material by her the cloth on her arm. And you do see is another shot here where you see a little bit of her helper there on the side, which is kind of a cute little touch there where she's just resting on top of it. Here's the back side of her palm, which there's not that much detail to it, but here's a side profile of her body all the way up to this little section by her top section of her arm. And this cloth area, again, I advise, do be careful with this section. It's actually extremely pointy. Just like with the base, I did poke myself with this a little, and it is flexible, so you don't need to worry about it like being too stiff or chipping or anything like that, but just don't really be flexing it too much, because flexing it too much could cause it to, you know, break. So again, the paint job here looks actually pretty nice. It's more of a darker blue compared to the front of the figurine, so it's a nice touch where the front is more of a brighter blue and towards the back is more darker blue in color. And the paint here is actually more of a glossy finish compared to a flat finish coloring when it comes to the front of the base. Again, this area here is actually pointy, so do be careful that you don't accidentally poke yourself with that. It's a nice paint job here, just like I said earlier. So here's the top area where you do see is the other side of the other helper here. So again, they have an expression where I'm not certain if they're happy or if they're like a little bit worried, because they have their eyebrows that are a little bit raised, so I'm not certain. Here's the front of her body here where you do see is her bra area, which you do see is you get a set of little bow ties here in the front, which is kind of cute. And I also noticed this little armpit here, which is quite detailed. You do see a little bit of lines on her armpit, which gives it a little bit more of a detailed feel to it. You do see the close shot of her other arm here with the same translucent material, where you do get is a little bit of a transparent look. That's why it has like not really pure white, but it's like a mixture of like pale tannish and a bit of silverish when it comes to this her arm cloth here, which is the reason why it kind of looks a little bit like weird, and it's because it's like a kind of a translucent material on her arm, and you can see it's kind of resting on top of this little helper dude. And this section here is actually really flexible. I think it's another section of her cape that she has, a little bit more flexible than the bottom section of the cape. So here's how close we shot her face, which I really do like her expression where she does have the open mouth with the tongue sticking out. And if you actually look, she actually has heart-shaped eyes, or her pupils are heart-shaped, which I feel like is supposed to be a reference to the character's ability to like blow a kiss at one of a character to give them HP, which is a pretty nice touch. And I really like the little expression she has of her mouth being wide open, her tongue sticking out. And you do see is her little ears here on the side for both left and right. You do see his little eyebrows underneath her front bangs that are covering, but she has a pretty decent, cute little expression, which is pretty funny. And you do see she has her vampire teeth, and from the top you see is a little gold crown. And from this top angle you do see her bosom area, which there's not really much there. I think she's flat chested, but it's still a little bit detail. You could kind of see is a little bit of sculpt work there by her chest area, which is a pretty nice touch, even though she doesn't really have much. And that kind of rhymed when I said that. So here we do get is a better view, or a front view of their hair. What you do see is a little bit of a twin tail. I don't know the exact hairstyle of this hair, but it's all twirled up, and no, they are not flexible, so you can't really, you know, flex them around. Just like her cape, it's just stiff on there. And from this top angle, you do see is another look of her body from her back. What you do see is her tail again attached to her bottom section there. You do see her collar there on her neck. Her hair there is actually quite detailed with all these lines. So, and I'm not really certain if this section is supposed to be her hair. So I'm guessing it's more of a darker colored hair compared to the top main section of her head with her twin tail, or if they're supposed to be cloth material holding on to her twin tail. And here's a little gold crown, which kind of doesn't really look, which I'm not certain if this is a crown, but it's supposed to be like a little crown on top of her head, which is kind of a little cute touch. And overall, it's a pretty decent figurine. There's not much I can, you know, show you because the figurine is attached to the base. So it's a little bit difficult to show you guys a little bit of close-up shot of the figurine itself. So I'll probably leave off my thoughts on this figurine towards the end of the video. So again, it's a decent figurine, but we'll just continue. We'll just end it here, and I'll probably tell you guys my opinion. So that was the collaboration between Amakuni and the distributor AmiAmi's figurine of the 1/7 scale figurine of the character Aqua Vampire Negligee version from the series Rainbow BomberGirl's video game. All in all, I gotta say it's a pretty nice, decent figurine. I really do love the translucent material they use for her clothing, where you could see it's a little bit transparent with a bit of silver, which you do see for both her arm cloth and also her main body. I love the color of her pale skin, which complements the blue on her design. I love also her little vampire helpers, which you do see we get a set of 4, where she has 2 at the bottom, 2 on her side, and 1 in the front. Again, their facial expression, I don't know if they're worried or I don't know if they're really happy to help. But besides that, personally, I think I prefer Wings' Aqua figurine. If you've seen it, I'll probably put a picture up here, which is Aqua standing up, which I feel like they put a little bit more detail, and I think there's more swap outs for that figurine compared to this one. And there is a companion piece for that figurine, which is Sepia, which I'll also put that on screen. And yes, I do know about the other BomberGirl characters figurines. It's just that I haven't bought all of them, and I'm not certain. Well, if I do, I may or may not make a video on those as well. But again, I'm not really certain if the BomberGirls franchise is well known here in the States. Well, from what I know, I don't really think it's that big. But it's a little nice franchise, and personally, I have not played it. I played the other Bombermans, but never played BomberGirl. But it looks fun from one of the videos I've seen of them playing it. But that's going to be the end of this one, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll leave you guys off with the figurine rotating in 360. And again, just like I stated earlier, I am getting figurines, but it's going to be taking a minute before they get to where I'm at. So in the meantime, I'll be unboxing older figurines just like this one. So that's going to be the end of this one, guys. If you have not checked out the BomberGirls game, it's a free to play, so you can check it out and see if you like it. So, like I always say, always support the original creator of the games or series that I talk about in the videos. Thank you guys for supporting my videos. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one. But I may or may not make a video of the other BomberGirls. I'm not certain yet.
今日メンバーギラギラ揺らせ